Hello, hello, hello. Happy Monday morning. Happy kickoff of earnings week. CPI, PPI, busy back end to this week. Quiet front end. We shall see. Looking for a bounce in the markets. Let me know what you're looking for. Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, Legion Reaver. Good morning, Jacob. Well, bunch of people in here, but not many in the chat just yet. Hope you all had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. So, you're ready for the cold, Patrick? You ready for the next big cold burst coming in, starting the end of the week? So, let's see. We're going to get more snow in the Chicagoland area this week. So, yay for that. Let's take a look at what's going on this week. Let's take a look. We got consumer inflation expectations today. Today's a very quiet day. You got some bill auctions. Always those become much more important, especially for tail events. So keep an eye on the 10:30 time frame. You got Bostic at 11:30 Central. Remember, everything I do is in Central Time, based off the CME. Also, that's one of the reasons. It's not just that I live in Central Time. It's when the CME does everything. Consumer credit change at 2 p.m. Let's see who else is jumping in here. Good morning, JP. Good morning, Eric. Tuesday. We got balance of trade coming out 7:30. Red Book 7:55. Another quiet day though. Economic optimism index at 9 a.m. Wednesday, extremely quiet. Crude numbers, as always, when there's not a holiday on Monday, comes out Wednesday. So they're back to Wednesday again. But that's about it. Then you got a bill and note auctions. So you got Williams speaking, but Thursday really gets things going. Before that, let's see who else is here. Well, good. Glad you missed the snow and sleet in Baltimore, Richard. Boy, what did you think of the Steelers Ravens game? So, core inflation, that's the big thing on Thursday. Inflation, CPI numbers. So that's going to be Thursday, 1 hour before the cash open, 7:30 Central. That's going to really be the potentially volatile event on Thursday. We got initial and continuing jobless claims, and then your 4-week and 8-week bill auctions. So Thursday morning, very busy. And Friday, PPI numbers, and they're minor, but the Friday also kicks off earnings season, technically kicks off earnings season. So and then we got Kashkari speaking. So the biggest thing this week is your CPI and inflation numbers, followed by PPI and earnings. Speaking of earnings, there you go. Let me just move this out of the way real quick. I mean, you got a couple things earlier in the week, but earnings season kicks off on Friday with JP Morgan, United Health, Delta, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, BlackRock, Citi, BNY Mellon. So there you go. That's your big earnings day, setting the tone for how things could play out. Now, remember, these are fourth quarter earnings being released in the first quarter. So far this morning, oil pulling back. Mega caps slightly up for the most part. Boeing's getting hit after doors flying off planes. That's never a good thing. A bunch of their fleet, there's 737 Max is being grounded. So, Boeing taking it in the shorts today. You can see technology slight lead, but energy, the big pullback this morning. Everything else is a lot of flat. Basic materials and energy are lagging. Technology is leading. Fed watch still has 6 rate cuts priced in, starting with March. I think the market's very optimistic with those rate cuts, but we shall see. Fear and greed still back almost to extreme greed. So that's where we sit. Let's see. We got more people coming in now. Remember, earnings season on Friday. So Thursday, Friday. Just keep that in mind. Good morning, Anissa. You moved here from Dallas, so you're still a Cowboys fan. Well, hey, the Cowboys, what are they, the number 2 seed? Spent part of the weekend splitting fireworks, so we're ready for the cold. That sounds like a good plan, Patrick. Hey, Christoph. Good morning, Jake. All right, let me give you the big thing I'm looking at this week. So we know it's backloaded. All right, we've got daily cycles at the bottom. All right, nearly strong oversold condition, but it doesn't have to get technically below there. We are close, very close oversold. Weekly cycles are still headed down, but watching for a bounce and the strength. This is where I talk about the major secondary reaction. I'm watching for a bounce going in this week with daily cycles getting the bottom. Then when we get top on daily again, which could happen the end of this week, and we have weekly cycles still headed down, we could be in a very significant topping area in the markets. So do keep that in mind. Now, nothing is guaranteed. You know, the statement about the best laid plans. However, we do have a potential double bottom. A front run area for me is potentially if we get some momentum above 47.40. Going to be watching at that area. The official trigger for the double would be a close, at least on a 4-hour basis, above 47.60.25, using the conservative targets. Because it's a secondary bounce, you got 47.82, 47.94, and roughly 48.04. So this is going to be really key, even though we're still in a lopsided double top that's triggered. I'm keeping close eye on this double bottom. Why? Because as the double top, the technical, as I said last week, I'd be moving down the stop. The technical stop is still, look at the technical stop if it's not moved down because we didn't technically. So if you're trading it systematically, we did not hit 46.99.50. So the technical stop would still be this 48.04, 25 level, which is roughly right at the final double target. So it will be interesting right there if this double does trigger. So that's what I'm keeping an eye on. Who else? Hey, Royal Palms. SWN if we have time. If I wouldn't mind checking out Visa on daily N or DIA against the percent B buy you taught us, I would appreciate it. V on the daily and or DIA against, okay, well, just remind me in a bit. Let me get through some of this. So keep an eye. We could be in for a really nice little bounce before the next major rollover play. But the strength of this bounce will tell us a lot. The NASDAQ in the same position, oversold, cycles at the bottom on the daily, cycles still headed down on the weekly. So mismatch of cycles. I'm also watching for the bounce in the NASDAQ. We're trading right at a key area going into the open, this 16,500, 16.5. The official trigger for the double, 16,577.25 on a closing basis, 16,676.75, 16 about 720, 650, 16,766.75. And that takes us, if this double were to trigger with the conservative targets, that takes us between the 50 and the 62.5. All right. So that's where a key target I'll be watching for if this bounce manifests and turns into a little mini rally. The Dow has nothing. The Dow did come down. We closed below the 62.5 yesterday, on Friday, and hit the 87.5. So the Dow, without ever confirming or triggering the double, could be in for a bounce here. There's no good doubling pattern here. I'd be watching for a bounce in the Dow between 37,792 and 37,872. Excuse me. Dry throat. That's what looking at that in. Still, the major support on any down move is 37,390. Russell also, so far, No mini double. Bottom pattern. Would have to spike below 1951.2 to set up. If that does not set up, I'm just using the harmonics. Especially I'll be watching the key level of 1988. Then my key targets would be 2017. That would be my first key target if it can even get that high. Minor target 1998 to 2004 is the minor target area. The VIX still slight gap up from Friday's close, but again, same levels going in this week, 1375. Only can't get into things tipping more bearish until we start breaking above 1435 again. And especially a close on a daily close above that really would tip me back into more bearish mode, but not expecting that in the short term. If we do break below this 1375, you have some pretty strong area about 1335. Below 1335, I got to then stay in short-term bullish mode, especially. The DAX watching for a potential bounce. The key areas I'm watching for is 16,854 to 16,921 is my first key bounce area. With these holding, flattening out rotation zone, but then I'll be watching for a bounce. There's no real great topping pattern. Tried to break down from a horizontal channel, but still holding. But then if we start really getting a close back below 16,665, I could see the DAX easily returning to 16,350 to 16,400. So keep an eye on that. Notes. Daily cycles at the bottom, nearly oversold. Against the rotation zone, a weak rotation zone, by the way. Weekly cycles still headed down. So I'm also watching for the bounce play in the notes. This is really sloppy price action, but still watching for a bounce play in the notes futures. And the key target area, the first key target area on that would be about 112.09, 112.10. The micro yield, watching for a pullback with cycles at the top, overbought, watching now for a pullback, and then that establishing a more significant bottoming pattern. So please keep an eye on that. Even if you don't trade it, we could see a pullback. And that's the secondary reaction for the notes is down. So that's what I'm watching also. Weekly cycles still headed up. We are between the 50 and the 62.5. So you see on Friday spiking up to that 62.5 level, but not closing above it. Closing roughly back at the 200 and the 50% level. So now, again, if we start breaking down through about 401.5, going to start really be watching for that pullback. The key levels, let me flip this around. The key levels. The first key area I'm watching is about 3.93, 3.94. So that's what I'm watching first for a primary pullback. 10-2s. We're getting to that critical area, as I've talked about, that minus 25 basis points. We still could be kicking in with the bear steepening again, but this is very key area, minus 25. So keep an eye on that. That's what, again, I'm watching. Dollar index, very wide range day. We had a lot of interesting price action on Friday. Very wide range day. Daily cycle starting to roll over, watching for the pullback move. Again, we spiked just above the 62.5, but could not close. We closed right at that 50%, and now it looks like we're turning down. So I'm going to be watching the secondary reaction, and this is the downward move. First key area around Friday's low is the 50% harmonic, this 101.50. Just call it 101.49 to 101.50 is key. So that's where that sits. That's the first key area I'm watching. Then on a closing basis, 101.18. Crude getting smacked this morning. We're going to see if where it sits, but this is looking like it could get into a longer term one of the crude consolidations. So we had the pretty decent sell off. We got the bounce, setting up a potential double, which is not wiped off the charts just yet. And now pulling back again, but I'm now watching probably for this double to disappear and a more consolidated base to come in here. Remember, with the weekly, last week did not close below the 200, but this is a very key area. There's been a fair amount of buying pressure down here. So I'm going to be watching for support to be down here, especially a bounce going into closer to the end of the week. So I'm watching this low area. This low area. Now, based off of here, let me just take this double off for now. Based off of here, we could easily see a return back to the 68.75 area. Gold can't get much traction on. Still watching for that longer term thing to kick in. I'm going to be paying attention to especially Thursday for see if it can light a fire under gold. Key support at this point is 2,000. Has not been able to hold on to the 2050 level. So really paying attention to that 2,000 area for a short term. Not for the long term. Long term still stays in bullish mode. Short term. What else? Yen confirmed but not triggered a sloppy double. Still watching to see if it does close above this 144.95 area, but going to start focusing more on a potential pullback. Euro watching for a bounce. Euro watching for a bounce. If you wanted to look at the short-term levels in the euro, I'd be keeping an eye, especially at 110.41. 110 is the first area of resistance just above Friday's high, but then 110.41 is key on a closing basis to potentially set up another run to retest. If the dollar pulls back a little more, or retest of the recent hot major swing high. Nothing going on the pound. The spiders, again, I'd be watching. I don't know. Did Options 22 jump in here? Haven't seen him yet. Maybe watch it on replay. But I'd be watching for a bounce pattern in the spiders, especially if that double triggers in the S&P, before I'd establish a more significant short pattern. So the key areas that I'm watching off of this on any bounce play, I'm really paying attention to about 470.50. Right now, we're trading 468.27. On any down move, I'll be watching for a gap fill to Friday's close, 467.92. But the key, really, besides intraday patterns, the key breakout level is 470.50 on the spiders. And then 471.99, then 473.38 on a closing basis. The technical invalidation point to the lopsided double is 473.90 on a closing basis. The Qs, remember, let me take this off real quick, are between the 50 and the 62.5. Remember, we did not have a double between the 50, so I'm watching for a bounce play in there. So key breakout areas is 399.65. Little gap up today at 397.85. The gap fill, if we have weakness in the open, 396.75. But that's where we sit right now. We are at this is, remember, between the 50 and the 62.5 is where we get a lot of short-term reversal plays. So that's what I'm watching for. Now the first major level would be 404.13. Then on closing basis, 406.33. By the way, Bitcoin, keep an eye on this. It did not, if you watched me on Futures Edge podcast, this 40,300 was my key level. We did not get below it last week. We had weakness back there, but breaking out above. So keep an eye on that if you're a bullish Bitcoin. The next major run has to, and we could be getting ETF approvals this week. We'll see. And it could also be sell the news on that. But 48,922 is the key level on a closing daily basis. For any other bounce plays, keeping an eye on NVIDIA, which might be turning into might invalidate this double top that never triggered. I'm not talking this other one. Now remember, this minor one technically needs, for the probability closes to kick in, it needs a downward close to trigger officially. Upward close, gap up on Friday. So this never officially triggered. But that's something I'm keeping an eye on. More importantly, then we'll look at these other stocks. I'm keeping an eye on Apple, tagging the 200 between the 50 and 62.5 with gaps left behind. Now, this would not be a long-term play. Very oversold. Cycles at the bottom. I'd be watching for a short-term bounce play. Also, on a close above Friday's highs, a %B buy setup. So I'm really paying attention to, and that's a bounce play only. Not guaranteed even kick in. That's why I'm watching Friday's high. Now, what else do we have? Would I mind checking out the, what, do you want the diamonds against %B buy? I don't look at the diamonds on this platform that much, but diamonds, let's see. Where did we close Friday? Minus 0.04. So, yes, that would be a above on the close, above Friday's high on the Dow Spiders would be a aggressive %B buy. What other thing you want me to look at? Visa. The good old Visa. I mean, if you're just looking, Visa does not have a %B right now. Visa, let me fix the chart up. By the way, Visa still does have a massive double top in play, but the next key target has already hit that 262.43. 272.19 is the next major target area. Let's do the harmonics on this. And so look at that. You got that harmonic cluster. Should Visa keep running 272.19 area, which would invalidate the double, the massive double? 267.65 would be on any breakout pattern. That's where you sit there. SWN. Southwest Energy could be in for a little pullback today on energy weakness, but this is if that really holds the, especially on a closing basis, roughly about 670 on any pullbacks, could be, you know, this is setting up a nice little bottoming play with a very strong move up on Friday. So to make sure it's not a false breakout, really watch that 668, 670 area. If I flip around the harmonics, where you really want to see it then close above is back above 704. You want to see a closing above 704. What else? AAP. It's time to back up the truck on advanced auto parts. I like that. Did you mean that to be? That was good. I like that. Backing up the truck on advanced auto parts. You know, advanced auto parts had this double against the double against the rotation zone, but this could be interesting, setting up for a potential more run higher. That's on the weekly double. Now it's just gone sideways from the daily, but holding in. So, I mean, this is a bullish play. You got the weekly double that was triggered, and now it's just moving sideways. And even these double targets, if I put on the aggressive one. Look how close it is to the prior highs and the 200. So this could easily return to the area. Declining daily 200 will keep declining, but I'd be watching an eye on that if you're. This could be setting up a more significant bottoming pattern. Now, weeklies are at the top. So this could still face some overhead resistance and you need to be patient on this one potentially. But the invalidation point, since it did not technically get to the stop, is 52.63. So as long as this holds above 52.63 on a closing basis, yeah, that could be setting up a more significant bottoming pattern. All right. So that's where we sit. Let's take a look at the S&P going to the open. Again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and spending some Monday morning quality time. Again, this 47.43, I'm really now going to pay attention to into the open. 47.43, especially with no major selling pressure yet. Let's see where the tick opened. The tick opened slightly positive, but nothing major. But if we start pushing above 600s on the tick and can get, 800s on the tick and start getting above that 47.43 with sustained pushes, I'm going to be watching for at least some intraday area to potentially retest Friday's high. You are welcome, Jacob. So that's the complete game plan. Morning, Heinrich. That is the complete game plan as I'm watching not just for today, but for potentially how this week could play out. So macro, pay attention to Friday's lows. Friday's lows will be very key to maintain any bullish bounce case. With that, I shall talk to everyone later. Bye for now.